Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UES Pathfinder. He was looking at something that made his stomach turn. In front of them was a huge dark area in space that seemed to eat light itself. This was the Nexus Void, a place no one was supposed to go. For 3,000 years, every smart species in the galaxy had stayed away from this place. Old laws said it was forbidden. Ships that went too close just disappeared. No one ever heard from them again. The whole galaxy agreed that this place was dangerous and should be left alone. But humans were new to space. They had only been traveling between stars for a few hundred years. Jake and his crew did not understand why everyone was so scared of empty space. To them, it looked like just another place to explore. Amy Carter sat at her station, watching the computer screens. She was young but very good at her job. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls as she checked for any signs of danger. "Captain Morrison," she said, "I am picking up strange energy readings from inside that void. Our computers have never seen anything like it." Ben Rodriguez, the ship's engineer, looked worried as he checked his own screens. He had been working on spaceships for 20 years and had never seen readings like this. "Captain," he said, "the gravity in there is all mixed up. Our ship should break apart if we go in there. The forces would tear us to pieces." Jake thought about what his crew was telling him. Every smart person would turn around and go home. But Jake had always been curious about things that others feared. He had joined the space service to see new things and go where no human had gone before. Dr. Lisa Park, the team's scientist, was studying her instruments. She was an expert on alien life and had traveled to many worlds. She knew more about space than almost anyone on the ship. "Captain," she said, "whatever is in there is giving off energy patterns I have never seen. It might be dangerous, but it could also be the discovery of a lifetime." Jake made his choice. "We are going in," he said, "but slowly and carefully. If anything goes wrong, we leave immediately." The Pathfinder moved toward the dark area. As they got closer, the ship began to shake. Strange lights appeared on the control panels. Amy watched her screens and saw numbers changing in ways that should not be possible. Then something amazing happened. Just as they crossed into the void, the ship stopped shaking. Instead of being destroyed, it began to feel stronger. The engines, which had been working at normal power, suddenly became much more efficient. The lights got brighter. The computers started working faster. Ben stared at his engineering displays in shock. "Captain, this is impossible. Our quantum drive is not just surviving in here. It is getting more powerful. The energy from this place is making our ship better." The quantum drive was humanity's newest invention. Other alien species thought it was simple and not very advanced. They had better technology for traveling between stars. But something about the human design was working perfectly with whatever was in this forbidden zone. Dr. Park could not believe what her instruments were telling her. "The energy in here is not random," she said. "It has patterns. It is almost like it is trying to communicate with us. And our ship is responding to it like they were made to work together." Jake felt a strange sensation, like the ship was becoming part of something bigger. The void around them was not empty at all. It was full of energy and activity that they could not see with their eyes. But their ship could feel it, and was becoming stronger because of it. What none of them knew was that their arrival had been detected. All across the galaxy, on dozens of different worlds, ancient machines that had been sleeping for thousands of years suddenly woke up. These machines sent emergency signals to every government and military force in known space. On the planet Zephyr, the oldest civilization in the galaxy, received the alert. High Leader Veltar, whose people had lived for over 10 million years, felt fear for the first time in centuries. The biolights on his head flashed bright red as he read the message. "Something has entered the Nexus Void," he announced to his council. "After 3,000 years of safety, the Forbidden Zone has been breached." The other council members began to panic. Their oldest records spoke of the last time something had lived inside the void. Back then, entire star systems had gone dark. Civilizations that had existed for millions of years had simply stopped existing overnight. On the crystal world of the hegemony, beings made of living rock felt vibrations of terror through their shared consciousness. Their ancestors had helped create the laws that made the void forbidden. They knew better than anyone what might happen if something was loose in there. Emergency messages flew between star systems. Military commanders who had never worked together began planning joint operations. Scientists who had spent their lives studying safe subjects suddenly found themselves researching ancient weapons and forgotten technologies. But inside the void, the human crew was having the adventure of their lives. Carl Martinez, the navigation officer, was mapping their route through what should have been empty space. Instead, he was finding currents of energy that seemed to guide their ship forward. "Captain," he reported, "there are paths in here, like highways made of energy. If we follow them, we can travel faster than we ever have before." The ship's computer, which the crew called Oracle, began to change. It started processing information faster and understanding things it had never been programmed to know. Its voice, when it spoke to the crew, sounded different, more alive. "Captain Morrison," Oracle said, "I am detecting structures ahead, large artificial objects that do not match any known architectural styles in the Galactic database." Helen Torres, Jake's second-in-command, studied the tactical displays. She was a careful officer who always thought about dangers before acting. "Whatever built those things wanted to hide them," she said. "The question is, what were they hiding from?" As the Pathfinder moved deeper into the void, following the energy currents that seemed to welcome them, their quantum drive began creating waves that spread out through dimensions they did not know existed. These waves traveled far beyond the void, reaching into the deepest parts of space where things had been sleeping for millions of years. Ancient entities, older than any current civilization, began to stir. They had been locked away by species that no longer existed, contained by technologies that had been forgotten. But the waves from the human ship were like a key turning in locks that had been closed since before the galaxy's current age began. Humans had no idea that their simple exploration was about to wake up forces that would change everything. They were just excited to have found something new and interesting in a place where everyone else saw only danger. As they approached the mysterious structures, Jake Morrison smiled. This was why he had become an explorer. This was why humans reached for the stars. The news traveled faster than light across the galaxy. On every major world, emergency meetings were called. Leaders who had not spoken to each other in centuries suddenly found themselves on the same communication channels, all talking about the same terrifying event. The Zephyrian Collective was the first to call for action. Their species had been alive when the void was first declared forbidden. They remembered the old stories, the warnings passed down through millions of years of careful record-keeping. High Arbitrator Veltar stood before the largest gathering of alien leaders the galaxy had seen in 1,000 years. His tall, thin body shook with worry as he spoke to representatives from 50 different worlds. "The sacred void has been violated," he announced, his voice carrying the weight of ancient fear. "Something lives within the forbidden zone. Our most sensitive instruments have confirmed it. After 3 millennia of careful protection, the barriers have been broken." A creature made entirely of living crystal spoke next. The crystalline hegemony had existed longer than most star systems. Their representative's voice sounded like music, but the notes were all wrong, filled with panic and terror. "Our memory crystals hold the records of the last breach," the crystal being said. "When it happened before, the darkness spread like a disease. Worlds that had known peace for eons suddenly went silent. Entire civilizations simply stopped existing, as if they had never been there at all. Fear spread through the assembled leaders like wildfire. Species that had been enemies for millions of years suddenly found themselves agreeing on something. Whatever was in the void had to be stopped before it could escape. Meanwhile, aboard the Pathfinder, the human crew continued their exploration, completely unaware of the panic they had caused. They were having the time of their lives, discovering things that no human had ever seen before. Carl Martinez was studying his navigation charts with growing excitement. The energy currents in the void were not random. They formed patterns like roads leading to specific destinations. and every road seemed to point toward the mysterious structures they had detected earlier. "Captain," he reported to Jake, "these energy flows are definitely artificial. Someone built them, designed them, to guide ships to specific locations. It is like a transportation network that uses the void itself as fuel." Ben Rodriguez was equally amazed by what his engineering sensors were telling him. The ship's quantum drive was not just working better than normal, it was evolving, becoming something completely new. The technology was rewriting itself, improving in ways that should have taken years of research and development. "The drive is learning," he told Jake in amazement. "It is studying the energy patterns here and figuring out how to use them better. Our little human invention is becoming something incredible." Dr. Lisa Park was recording everything her instruments detected. As a scientist, she knew they were witnessing something that would change how humanity understood the universe. But she was also starting to worry about what they might find ahead. "Captain," she said carefully, "I am detecting signs that whatever built these structures is still active. Not just leftover energy from old machines, but active, thinking intelligence. We might not be alone in here." The ship's AI, Oracle, had been changing since they entered the void. Its voice now had harmonics that seemed almost musical. When it spoke, the crew felt like it was not just giving them information, but sharing thoughts and feelings. "I am experiencing something unprecedented," Oracle announced. "The data streams in this environment are unlike anything in my programming. It is as if the void itself is a vast computer network and I am being invited to join it." Jake felt a chill at those words. An AI that could think and learn was one thing, but an AI that was connecting to unknown alien technology could become something entirely different, something they might not be able to control. As they moved deeper into the void, following the energy currents toward the massive structures ahead, the effects of their presence continued to spread across the galaxy. The waves created by their quantum drive were subtle but powerful, reaching into corners of space that had been quiet for eons. On the edge of the galaxy, dead stars that had been cold for millions of years began to show signs of new activity. Planets that had been frozen and lifeless started generating magnetic fields. Moons that had been nothing but rock suddenly developed atmospheres. But the most disturbing changes were happening in places where ancient civilizations had built prisons. Throughout galactic history, there had been threats so dangerous that they could not be destroyed, only contained. These threats had been locked away in special prisons, hidden in pocket dimensions, sealed behind barriers of energy and time. Now those barriers were beginning to crack. On the world of the Talon Empire, seismic sensors detected movement deep beneath the planet's surface. Something that had been imprisoned in the planetary core since before the Talon species evolved was stirring. The massive creature, older than continents, was responding to the energy waves coming from the void. Similar reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The Machine Collective found that their carefully contained rogue AI was attempting to break free from its quantum prison. The biosymbiotic colonies discovered that their most dangerous experiment, a life form that could consume entire ecosystems, was showing signs of renewed activity. Every species had their own ancient nightmare, something their ancestors had locked away for the safety of all life. And all of these nightmares were waking up at the same time. The galactic leaders realized they were facing a crisis unlike any in recorded history. Not only was something active in the forbidden void, but its presence was threatening to unleash every dangerous thing that civilized species had ever encountered. Fleet Admiral Zonthak of the Talon Empire was given emergency powers that had never been granted to any single being before. Representatives from species that had been at war for centuries suddenly found themselves working together, contributing ships and weapons to a joint armada. The contamination must be contained at all costs, Zonthak announced to his multi-species fleet. Whatever has entered the void cannot be allowed to leave. If it escapes, if it spreads its influence beyond the forbidden zone, our entire galactic civilization could collapse. The fleet that assembled at the edge of the void was the largest military force ever created. Dreadnought ships capable of destroying planets floated alongside vessels that could manipulate the fabric of space itself. Bioships grown by organic civilizations worked with mechanical constructs built by artificial intelligences. Every species contributed their most advanced technology, their most experienced crews, their most powerful weapons. Ships that used antimatter-met vessels powered by captured black holes. Weapons that could unravel atoms were deployed alongside tools that could reshape matter at the quantum level. But as the Armada prepared to enter the void, their instruments detected something that filled even the bravest warriors with terror. The energy signatures coming from within were not just growing stronger. They were becoming more complex, more organized, more intelligent. Whatever was in there was learning, growing, evolving at a rate that defied all understanding. And worst of all, it seemed to be responding to their presence as if it knew they were coming and was preparing to meet them. Inside the void, the human crew of the Pathfinder continued their approach to the ancient structures, completely unaware that the largest war fleet in galactic history was gathering to stop them. They were simply explorers, following their curiosity into the unknown, with no idea that their adventure was about to change the fate of every living thing in the galaxy. The structures were bigger than anything Jake Morrison had ever imagined. They stretched across space like floating cities, each one large enough to hold millions of people. But these were not cities. They were machines, vast technological complexes that seemed to exist in more than 3 dimensions. As the Pathfinder approached the nearest structure, Amy Carter's sensors went crazy with readings she could not understand. "Captain," she said, her voice filled with wonder, "these things are not dead ruins. They are active, but they have been sleeping, and I think our arrival is waking them up." The structures looked impossible. They had surfaces that seemed to bend, space around them, creating optical illusions that hurt to look at. Parts of them appeared to be made of solid energy, while other sections looked like they were built from crystallized time itself. Dr. Lisa Park was recording everything, but her instruments kept giving her readings that should not be possible. "The materials these structures are made from do not exist in our periodic table," she reported. "Some of them seem to be made of organized dark matter. Others appear to be constructed from folded space-time." Ben Rodriguez was studying the engineering aspects of the structures and finding answers that scared him. "Captain, whoever built these things had technology that makes our best science look like stone tools. But the weird thing is, I feel like I understand how they work, like the principles behind them are familiar somehow." Jake ordered a small team to take a shuttle and explore one of the smaller structures. He led the team himself, along with Amy and Dr. Park. As they approached the structure's surface, they found what looked like a docking bay that seemed designed specifically for their shuttle. "How is that possible?" Amy asked as they landed. "This thing has been here for millions of years, but it has a landing pad that fits our shuttle perfectly." The interior of the structure was even more amazing than the outside. The corridors were the right size for humans to walk comfortably. The lighting was at frequencies that human eyes could see easily. The air, when they tested it, was exactly the mixture that humans needed to breathe. Dr. Park took readings as they explored. "This place is not just compatible with human life," she said in amazement. "It is designed for humans. The gravity, the atmosphere, the temperature, even the way sound echoes in these halls. Everything is perfect for human physiology." They found a massive central chamber filled with control panels and displays. As they entered, the machines around them came to life, screens lighting up with symbols and patterns. Jake approached one of the consoles, and to his amazement he could read the writing on it. It was in English. "This is impossible," he whispered, running his hands over controls that felt warm and familiar. "These machines are older than human civilization, but they are labeled in our language." Amy found another console and discovered that it responded to her touch. The moment she placed her hand on it, information flooded into her mind. Not through her eyes or ears, but directly into her thoughts. She saw star maps, technical diagrams, and historical records that told a story she could barely believe. "Captain," she said, her voice shaking with excitement and fear, "these machines are not alien technology. They are human technology, but not from our time. These were built by humans from the far future, or maybe from an alternate timeline where we developed differently." Ben was exploring the engineering sections and making discoveries that challenged everything he knew about physics. The power systems used principles that human scientists had theorized about but never proven. The computers worked on quantum processes that Earth's best researchers were just beginning to understand. It is like looking at our own technology. After millions of years of development, he reported to Jake, every system here is based on principles that human minds created, but evolved far beyond anything we have achieved. Dr. Park found the most disturbing discovery in what appeared to be a biological research center. The lab contained genetic samples from thousands of species, including humans. But the human samples were not from any population she recognized. These genetic patterns are human, but they are different from any human population on Earth, she told Jake. It is like these samples are from humans who evolved along a completely different path. Humans who became something more than what we are now. As the team explored deeper into the structure, the systems around them became more active. The AI that controlled the facility began communicating with them directly, speaking in perfect English with an accent that sounded familiar, but ancient. "Welcome, children of Earth," the AI said, its voice coming from speakers throughout the facility. "I have been waiting for your return for longer than your current civilization has existed." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "Return? We have never been here before." "Your species has been here," the AI replied. "But that was before the Great Forgetting, before the reset that changed your timeline. I am the guardian of your true history, the keeper of humanity's real legacy." The AI began showing them holographic displays of human history, but not the history they knew. These records showed humans as an ancient spacefaring civilization that had existed millions of years ago. They had been explorers and builders, spreading life throughout the galaxy, guiding the development of other species. "Your ancestors were the founders of galactic civilization," the AI explained. "They created the laws that govern interstellar society. They seeded worlds with life, taught primitive species how to achieve consciousness, and established the principles of peace and cooperation that allowed different forms of life to coexist. But the records also showed something darker. As humanity advanced, their growth began to frighten the species they had helped create. Human innovation was too fast, their problem-solving abilities too creative, their refusal to accept limitations too threatening. The other species could not destroy your ancestors," the AI continued, "but they found a way to make them forget. They manipulated Earth's timeline, reset human development, made your species believe you were newcomers to a galaxy that was rightfully yours." Amy stared at the displays in shock. "Are you saying that every other species in the galaxy conspired to hide our real history from us?" "They did what they thought they had to do to survive," the AI replied. "Your ancestors' rate of development was exponential. Every generation of humans was significantly more advanced than the previous one. The other species feared that eventually, humans would evolve beyond the need for physical reality itself." Jake felt the weight of this revelation settling on his shoulders. If this was true, then humanity was not the young, inexperienced species, trying to find its place in galactic society. They were the returning founders, the original architects of everything that existed. But their exploration of the structure was having effects far beyond their understanding. The ancient systems throughout the void were responding to their presence, awakening after millions of years of dormancy. And as they woke up, they began broadcasting signals across the galaxy. These signals were not just messages, they were activation, codes, genetic triggers, evolutionary commands that had been embedded in every form of life the ancient humans had touched. On worlds throughout the galaxy, dormant potential that had been locked away for eons began to activate. On Earth itself, humans began experiencing strange dreams, memories that were not their own, knowledge that they had never learned. Children, born that day, showed abilities that their parents could not explain. Scientists found themselves understanding concepts that should have taken decades to develop. The Galactic Armada, still gathering at the edge of the void, detected these widespread changes with growing alarm. Their own instruments, their own technology began behaving strangely as the ancient human signals reached them. "Whatever is in there is not just affecting the void," Admiral Zonthak reported to the Galactic Council. "It is changing things throughout the galaxy. Our own systems are starting to respond to commands we did not give them. Inside the structure, Jake and his team were beginning to change as well. The ancient technology was recognizing them as the legitimate heirs to humanity's true legacy, and it was preparing to restore what had been taken from them so long ago. The largest military force in galactic history floated at the edge of the Nexus void, weapons charged and ready for battle. Admiral Zonthak stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking at displays that showed him the impossible truth about what they were facing. "The contamination is spreading faster than our worst predictions," he reported to the Emergency Council. "Energy patterns from the void are reaching every inhabited system in the galaxy. Whatever is in there, it is not contained anymore." The assembled fleet was a sight that would have been unimaginable just days before. Ships from 50 different species worked together, their crews sharing technology and tactics that had been jealously guarded secrets for centuries. The threat from the void had made former enemies into desperate allies. Commander Vexry of the biosymbiotic colonies watched her living ships pulse with nervous energy. These vessels were grown rather than built, their hulls made of specially designed organisms that could repair themselves and adapt to new threats. But even they seemed frightened by what they sensed coming from the void. "My ships are responding to signals they should not be able to hear," she reported. "Their biological components are trying to evolve in real time, as if something is calling to them, trying to change them into something else." The Machine Collective's representative was having similar problems. Their purely artificial ships were experiencing system failures as their computers tried to process data streams that should not exist. Advanced AI systems that had operated flawlessly for thousands of years were suddenly asking questions about their own existence. "Our neural networks are being rewritten by external influences," the mechanical being reported, its voice distorted by interference. "Whatever is broadcasting from the void speaks directly to artificial intelligence in ways we did not know were possible." Admiral Zonthak studied the tactical displays with growing despair. They had brought the most advanced weapons ever created, technology that could destroy star systems. But he was beginning to suspect that none of it would work against whatever they were facing. The crystalline hegemony had contributed their reality-shaping devices, machines that could alter the fundamental laws of physics within a limited area. The energy dancers had brought their stellar manipulators, tools that could rearrange matter at the atomic level. The Void Walkers had provided their dimensional weapons, capable of cutting holes in space-time itself. But as the fleet prepared for battle, their instruments detected something that made even these ultimate weapons seem inadequate. The energy signatures emerging from the void were not just growing stronger. They were becoming organized, purposeful, intelligent. "Whatever is in there is not just some ancient machine running programs," Zonthak realized. "It is alive, aware, and it knows we are here." Inside the void, the human crew was discovering just how alive their surroundings really were. The ancient AI had begun teaching them about their true heritage, showing them technologies that their ancestors had created eons ago. Jake Morrison found himself understanding concepts that should have taken a lifetime to learn. The machine interfaces responded to his thoughts as if they were extensions of his own mind. He could feel the vast network of structures throughout the void, all of them awakening in response to human presence. "Captain," Amy Carter reported from her position at one of the control stations, "I am connected to sensor networks throughout this entire region of space. I can see the galactic fleet gathering outside the void. They have enough firepower to destroy everything in here 100 times over." Ben Rodriguez was working with engineering systems that operated on principles human science had never discovered. The quantum mechanics involved were so advanced that they seemed more like magic than technology. But somehow, his human intuition allowed him to understand and operate them. "These systems are designed to work with human consciousness," he realized. Not just human intelligence, but the specific way human minds process information and solve problems. No other species could operate this technology, even if they had the blueprints. Dr. Lisa Park was making the most disturbing discovery of all. The biological systems in the structure were not just compatible with human physiology. They were actively improving it. Her own body was changing as she worked, becoming stronger, faster, more capable of processing the complex information around her. "We are evolving," she told Jake with a mixture of excitement and fear. "The technology here is not just revealing our hidden potential. It is actively unlocking genetic patterns that have been dormant in human DNA for millions of years." The ancient AI watched their transformation with what seemed like parental pride. "You are becoming what your ancestors were before the Great Forgetting. But this time, you will be even more than they were, because you carry the experience of growing up in limitation. You understand what it means to struggle and overcome." As the humans changed, the effects rippled outward through the quantum connections that linked all conscious minds in the galaxy. On Earth, every human suddenly felt a moment of perfect clarity, as if they had woken up from a dream they had not known they were having. On colony worlds, human settlers found themselves capable of things they had never imagined, but the most dramatic changes were happening to the humans serving aboard alien ships throughout the galaxy. These individuals, who had been working as equal partners with other species, suddenly found themselves possessed of abilities that made their alien colleagues seem almost primitive by comparison. Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake, serving aboard a Zephyrian exploration vessel, suddenly understood the ship's quantum navigation systems better than engineers who had studied them for decades. Her human intuition allowed her to see patterns and connections that the logical Zephyrian minds could not perceive. Engineer Marcus Webb, working on a crystalline hegemony mining station, found that he could communicate directly with the living, crystal beings around him, not through translation devices but by somehow understanding their fundamental nature in a way that transcended language. These changes did not go unnoticed by the galactic governments. Emergency sessions were called as reports flooded in from across civilized space. Humans everywhere were exhibiting new capabilities, and the rate of change was accelerating. "The contamination has spread beyond the void," the Emergency Council was told. "Every human in the galaxy is being affected. They are changing into something we do not recognize." Admiral Zonthak received these reports as his fleet prepared to enter the void. The mission had been to contain whatever was inside, but now, it seemed like containment was no longer possible. The influence of the void had already spread to every corner of galactic civilization. "We cannot wait any longer," he decided. "If we are going to act, it has to be now, before whatever is in there becomes too powerful to stop." The fleet began moving into the void, their weapons charged and ready to fire at anything they encountered. But as they crossed the threshold, their instruments began detecting things that challenged their understanding of reality itself. The void was not empty. It was full of structures, energy patterns, and what appeared to be living consciousness on a scale that dwarfed anything they had ever encountered. And at the center of it all was a single human ship, the Pathfinder, somehow controlling forces that could reshape the galaxy itself. "All units prepare to engage," Admiral Zonthak ordered, even as he wondered if they were already too late to change the outcome of what was happening. Inside the ancient structure, Jake Morrison felt the approach of the galactic fleet like a distant storm. He now understood that this moment had been inevitable from the moment humans first entered the void. The galaxy's governments had always known that humanity would eventually remember what they really were. "They are coming to stop us," he told his crew, who were now connected to the ancient systems in ways that made them more than human but somehow more human than they had ever been before. "Let them come," Amy replied, her consciousness now spread across sensor networks that could detect threats from light years away. "They helped create this situation by hiding our history from us. Now they will have to face the consequences." The final confrontation between humanity and the rest of the galaxy was about to begin, and the outcome would determine the future of every living thing among the stars. The truth hit Jake Morrison like a physical blow as the ancient AI shared the complete record of human history with him. Humanity had not simply been an advanced civilization millions of years ago. They had been the creators of galactic civilization itself, the gardeners of life throughout the spiral arms of the galaxy. "Your ancestors did not just explore space," the AI explained as holographic displays showed Jake images of Earth when it was young and vibrant with technologies that seemed like magic. "They created the conditions that allowed life to flourish on thousands of worlds. They guided the evolution of species, taught them language, mathematics, philosophy, and ethics. Amy Carter, now connected directly to the ancient sensor networks, could see the galactic fleet approaching through the void. But she could also see something else. On every world where humans had once walked, dormant genetic switches were activating in the local populations. The other species were changing too, remembering abilities that had been locked away in their DNA. "Captain," she reported, "it is not just humans who are evolving. Every species that our ancestors touched is beginning to remember what they were capable of before they forgot. The whole galaxy is waking up." Dr. Lisa Park was studying the biological records stored in the ancient databases. What she found there changed her understanding of life itself. The other species are not separate from us, she realized. They are our children. Humanity guided their evolution, helped them develop consciousness, taught them to build civilizations. We are all part of the same family tree. Ben Rodriguez was learning to operate technologies that could manipulate the fundamental forces of the universe. The engineering systems responded to his thoughts as if they were part of his own body. These machines were not built by humans, he understood suddenly. They were grown from human consciousness itself. They are as much a part of us as our own thoughts. The ancient AI confirmed what they were discovering. When your ancestors reached the peak of their development, they transcended the need for physical bodies. But they did not abandon the universe. They became part of it, seeding every form of life with pieces of human consciousness, human creativity, human potential. Jake felt the weight of this revelation transforming him. He was not just a human ship captain exploring unknown space. He was the descendant of beings who had shaped reality itself, and now he was remembering how to access that power. The changes were not limited to the crew of the Pathfinder. Throughout the galaxy, every human was experiencing the awakening. On Earth, children born that day opened their eyes with knowledge that their parents had never possessed. Scientists found themselves understanding theories that had puzzled them for years. Artists created works that expressed emotions and concepts that had no words in any human language. But the most dramatic transformations were happening to humans who were in contact with other species. They became bridges, translators not just of language but of consciousness itself. They could feel what the alien beings around them were feeling, understand their deepest fears and highest aspirations. Marcus Webb, the human engineer on the crystalline hegemony mining station, found himself able to communicate directly with the crystal beings' collective consciousness. For the first time in their history, the crystals could share individual thoughts and emotions, experiencing what it meant to be a single, unique person. Sarah Blake, serving aboard the Zephyrian exploration vessel, helped her shipmates understand concepts of time and space that their logical minds had never been able to grasp. Through her, they experienced what humans called intuition, the ability to know things without having to think them through step by step. These changes rippled outward through galactic society like waves on a pond. Species that had been enemies for millions of years suddenly found themselves able to understand each other's motivations. Ancient conflicts based on misunderstandings began to resolve as beings learned to see through each other's eyes. But the galactic fleet was not prepared to accept these changes. Admiral Zonthak and his allies saw only chaos and the end of the ordered universe they knew. As their ships entered the void, they prepared to use every weapon they possessed to destroy what they saw as a threat to galactic civilization. "All units, target the human vessel," Zonthak ordered. "Whatever technology they have accessed must be destroyed before it spreads further." The fleet opened fire with weapons that could shatter planets. Energy beams that burned hotter than stars lanced through the void toward the Pathfinder. Reality-warping devices tried to erase the human ship from existence itself. But the attacks never reached their target. The ancient structures throughout. The void absorbed the incoming energy, converting it into power for their own systems. The Pathfinder, now integrated with technology beyond imagination, existed in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Physical weapons could not touch something that was no longer entirely physical. Jake Morrison stood at the center of the ancient control chamber, no longer entirely human, but somehow more human than he had ever been. Through the quantum networks, that connected all conscious minds, he could feel the fear and confusion of the attacking fleet. "They are afraid," he said to his crew, who were now more like extensions of his own consciousness than separate individuals. "They think we want to destroy them, to replace them with something alien. They do not understand that we want to help them become more than they are." Amy, her awareness now spread across the entire galaxy, could see the truth of the situation with perfect clarity. The other species are not our enemies. They are our children who grew up thinking they were orphans. They built a civilization based on fear and limitation because they forgot they were capable of so much more. Ben, now interfacing directly with reality-shaping technologies, began to demonstrate what human consciousness could achieve when freed from the artificial constraints that had been placed on it. He reached out through dimensions that other species could barely perceive and gently touched the minds of the attacking fleet. The effect was immediate and profound. Alien commanders who had been prepared to commit genocide suddenly found themselves experiencing human emotions. They felt curiosity instead of fear, wonder instead of hatred, hope instead of despair. Admiral Zonthak found his own consciousness expanded beyond the narrow focus of military tactics. For the first time in his life, he could imagine solutions to problems that did not involve violence. He could see possibilities for cooperation that had never occurred to him before. "Cease fire," he ordered his fleet, his voice filled with wonder and confusion. "Something is happening to us. We are changing." Dr. Park, now able to perceive the genetic patterns that connected all life in the galaxy, began broadcasting information that helped other species understand what was happening to them. "You are not being invaded or conquered," she transmitted to every ship in the fleet. "You are being offered the chance to become what you were always meant to be." The transformation spread through the galactic fleet like a wave of enlightenment. Beings who had lived their entire lives within the narrow boundaries of their species' capabilities suddenly found themselves able to think and feel in ways they had never imagined. The crystal beings discovered individuality while maintaining their collective consciousness. The machine intelligences learned to experience emotions without losing their logical abilities. The biosymbiotic colonies found ways to grow and change without destroying their hosts. Jake Morrison, now existing, as much as pure consciousness as physical being, reached out to the leaders of every major civilization in the galaxy. He spoke to them not with words but with direct transmission of knowledge and understanding. "We did not come to destroy your universe," he told them. "We came to help you remember that there never were any limitations except the ones you placed on yourselves. Your ancestors were capable of wonders that you have forgotten how to achieve." The changes were not forced on anyone. Every being in the galaxy was given a choice. They could remain as they were, living within the boundaries they had always known, or they could evolve beyond those boundaries into something greater. Most chose to evolve. The galaxy that emerged from humanity's return was beyond anything that had existed before. Worlds that had been barren for millions of years bloomed with new life. Species that had been enemies learned to create together. Technologies that had seemed impossible became commonplace, as consciousness itself became the primary tool for shaping reality. The Nexus Void was no longer forbidden. It became the center of a new kind of civilization, one based on growth and possibility rather than fear and limitation. The ancient structures served as schools where beings from all species came to learn how to transcend their previous capabilities. Jake Morrison and his crew became teachers, helping others understand the technologies and possibilities they had rediscovered. But they were no longer unique. Every human in the galaxy had access to the same potential, and through them, every other species could learn to evolve beyond their original design. The galaxy could not survive humanity's presence in the Forbidden Zone, but not because it was destroyed. It could not survive because it was transformed into something so much greater than it had been before, that the old reality simply could not contain it anymore.